for example, in finance, we take a £1 million film, easy with the 1 million. We say, okay, where do you get 500,000? How do you get to 200,000? If the tax rebate is 20%, that means you get 200,000. It's like, it's fine to make mistakes. There's not a problem to make mistakes or missing something, but then at least they understand how it works and keeps them engaged. And then it's getting more personal. It's getting more interesting for them as well. And they can relate a little bit more.
Welcome everybody to the Academy, where inspiring educators share their best practices. And today I'd like to welcome the fantastic Stefan Steinmair. Thank you so much for coming to the show. Hello, Stefan.
Hi, Timea. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So a little bit about Stefan. He is a producer, filmmaker, and apart from working on his own projects and also for Peloton as a producer, he is also teaching on a master program of the University of Westminster, and he teaches financing, filmmaking, and business. So, Stefan, an interesting thing I wanted to find out: how do you catch the attention of students who presumably are very excited about their film and sometimes probably less excited about the financing, or it's probably the area which is always something hard to understand. So what do you make to catch the attention and to retain the attention when you have to deliver a session, a lecture, and you come for the first time?
Yeah. First, I think finance is quite interesting. Yeah. So it's even students find it interesting. As you said, it's very difficult. It's like the difficult part of filmmaking, like how to get the money at the end. It's big, like it's a long process, like the finance, but usually it's the part where students have no experience, because everybody has watched the movie, everybody knows about storytelling, everybody tells stories, everybody can write. So everybody can do stuff now with the phones, everybody can shoot something on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Everybody at least shot something in their life, but it's really hard to find finance actually, and how does it really work? So what I found at the beginning when I'm teaching is they don't know much. They think they look at the box office, or they look at the big films, they say, oh, there's a budget, and then it makes X millions at the box office, and that's all they know. But then when you slowly get into it, what exists, like about co-productions, public funds, tax rebates, and all the different things, how you can put the finance together, you see how it switches, and they get really interested in it. So it's kind of easy for me. It's easy for me to keep them interested, but at the same time, what you were asking, like how to keep the attention, it's very difficult as well. It's it's a new thing. As I said, it's a new thing. So for them, it's difficult to follow and to understand from the beginning, okay, how does it work? What is a tax rebate? And I think from my side as a teacher, it's always the important thing is things are clear for me, but you have to go a couple of steps back and start from zero again and make it very simple. So I always like to explain it very simply, in a very simple way, do a lot of like practical examples or like exercises. So for example, in finance, we take a £1 million film, easy with the 1 million. We say, okay, where do you get 500,000? How do you get to 200,000? If the tax rebate is 20%, that means you get 200,000 as a tax incentive later back. So slowly just making exercise and always interacting with the students. I find it very helpful when I'm teaching, just like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour. And then what I just explained, make small groups or something, and then they can pitch it to me as well and say, oh, okay, we put the finance together like this. They're making mistakes, like it's fine to make mistakes. There's not a problem to make mistakes or missing something, but then at least they understand how it works and keeps them engaged at the end as well, because then different groups, even they see each other. And then pitching is an important thing as well. So they need to talk in front of the class, in front of me, and start talking about it. And I think it's, to come back to your question, like keep it simple, I think. Keep it simple, do it step by step, and keep it practical as well. So like involve them from the beginning, like say, okay, this is how we get the money. What do you think? And make practical examples. For example, I have a lot of international students. So, and film funds is a big thing in the film industry or co-production. So for example, if there's an Italian student, then we say, okay, how would it work with a co-production Italy and England? So where are you from? If they're from Milan, okay, there's a film fund probably in the region of Milan. How would that work? And then it's getting more personal, it's getting more interesting for them as well, and they can relate a little bit more. Or international students are like, well, there's a lot of co-production with England and Australia because of the language. There's a person from Australia that maybe they worked there and they said, oh, I know the film fund from Sydney. And then it's getting a little bit simpler, like easier to understand from the beginning.
Okay, yeah, this is very interesting. Couple of questions on the back of it. So you mentioned that you really having blocks of like 20 minutes. This is the time until they can pay attention, and then you hand it over to them to do something, right? And you mentioned pitching. do you teach them how to pitch? So is it like, okay, this is how you pitch and now you do it and now you practice it? Or how can they learn more about pitching? Because this is really interesting and a very, very important skill in their real life as well.
100%. Yeah. Like pitching, I think it's one of the most important things. It's like how to tell a story, how to talk to people. Especially in filmmaking, it's like obviously everybody has a story, like every drama, even the most famous films you see, it's a very simple story. It's like how was that film made and not a different film? Like how, at the end it's like how you pitch to someone. If you're the person with the money, and why did you give the money to me and not to the other person? At the end, it's just a story. Oh, these two people meet, and it's very simple stories. Like the plots are very similar with all the movies you see. If you take the genres, horror, drama, comedy, and so pitching is an important thing, and they need to learn it from the beginning. It's everywhere. Even when I work in corporate, it's pitching. It's all about pitching. You know, you go into meetings, two people. Even you and me now. It's kind of a pitching. It's telling someone something, or convince someone about something. It's 2 people, 3 people, 100 people. And it's important. That's, for example, in university, we keep it very important thing is the time frame, because of course people start talking and it has to be within 6 minutes, 4 minutes, maybe 12 minutes. I think that's a very important thing to always keep. Like we had exams this week, for example, and they had to pitch like a finance plan to me. And we had to stay into time. Then a few groups as well, they run overtime sometimes, but it's a very important thing to stay, because especially when you talk to people, and time is money, as you say, you know, like then it's and people don't want to listen to it. It's even getting boring something, because it's my story or my pitch is more important to me, for example, than to you. So I have to keep it short. It's going to be interesting for you as well. So yeah, coming back to your question, like, yeah, pitching is important. That's why I try from the beginning in class, make them pitch first as well, just to lose the fear of talking in front of other people, which is a normal thing. Like depending on the age as well, as a lot of students are even just 20, 21, 22. They're doing a master, but it's probably the first experience. It never really worked. They never had like meetings or professional pitches. So it's important for them as well to talk in front of other students. Not everybody's English mother tongue. It's even for the same for me. Like I'm Italian, I speak German. So it's like for me as well, like different language, there's a barrier. Like you make some mistakes, you have a different accent. And the younger you are, then probably think that people laugh at you or make fun of you. So you just have to I think that's the first step always and that's even in the class, we keep it quite different groups. So always try even to make groups, not the 2 people that sit next to each other, that they work together, like let people work together. Maybe they don't talk too much to each other, or they're not best friends. So they learn actually how to work on something and how to bring it over to other people. And you see how different it is when you just talk about something. It's different than when you have to like a proper pitch. You see that people like even they're good maybe in talking like freestyle, but then when you have to do a proper pitch, and now you need to put the creative story in 30 seconds, the finance plan in 1 minute, and the USPs in another 20 seconds, you see then the challenge that you easily get lost while you're talking. And I think that's the important thing to not forget what you want to bring over, because you have to, and we prepare a lot of pitches as well before, like, okay, what do you need to bring to the other person? Like, you know, like what's important and what's not important. And in the filmmaking is always, I talk about the creative story. It's important to a certain point, but if you go into detail, if I talk to you about getting me some funding, you don't really care about what happened to the protagonists in Act 3. It's more, okay, how much money do we make back, or how does it work? What's the time frame? So depending who you talk to, it's a different pitch. Like if I pitch to an investor, it's different to a writer, to a crew member, or to someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fascinating. So many interesting things. And a very important one, the feedback. Because you mentioned so many things about the pitching, or they can make mistakes, or the pitch can be too long or too boring. But how do you give feedback to students? What are your techniques so that they are not intimidated, and obviously they're also very passionate about what they talk about? So how to give feedback in a constructive way, that they are not intimidated and they are encouraged to try harder?
I think to encourage, I think it always depends on the person as well. Depends on the students. I think that's another important thing. Like even this year I have like 15 students. It's 15 different characters, 15 different personalities. Someone you can make a little bit more fun about it, with others a little bit more serious, with others they need more encouragement of something. I think with pitching, the main thing is it's the passion. You need to pitch about something what you like. Even I think that's always what I tell people. Even now when we pitch, they can choose their own topic. And sometimes after the pitch, they come to me and say like, oh, it was difficult to pitch this project, this film. So like, well, you could choose it. So like, and even after in the world, you know, if I have to work on a film now and I don't like documentaries, then I shouldn't pitch documentaries. Or I know that that's the easiest way to get the money to, then maybe that's then my passion, because I say, oh, it's easier to make it, even if I don't like the topic. then maybe it makes sense. But find something what you like. I think that's the most important with everything in life. If you like something, then it's easier to do. And it's the same here. Like if I like a project, if it's my passion project, then it's easier to pitch it and to be passionate about it. But at the same time, the feedback is as well, don't be too passionate. It's quite always a thin line, because if you get too passionate and the other person, they don't care that much, then they can even get annoyed. So you have to find this really thin line, and it's like reacting with the person you talk to. I think it's always important, even in this case, when I'm the teacher, when I'm teaching them, they pitch to me, even look at me, like if I look annoyed or something, and you see, as a teacher, then it's less, because of course you look there and you help them and so, but if I'm an investor and I'm bored, probably start looking at my phone, that's meaning losing me. Or if I look around, you understand people. They say if someone will start talking to the person next to them, pitching is even just at an event. When you go to film festivals in Cannes, Berlinale, you talk to people while having a drink and you see if they're interested or not. And if you're losing them, like it's a human thing as well. So it's like, it's a whole 360-degree to know the other person. It's a part of being a salesman. You need to talk to the other person, like understand the other person and selling your project, but don't be too pushy. Bring in, over, as I said before, the important points. That's where I obviously come back. What I want to cover. Okay, what do I need? I need the money. I need to put a creative story. What do I have? Maybe a famous actor attached. So like bring in like the important things and play with them around, like to get the attention back from something. Mm-hmm. So, and as a feedback as well with the group, what we do a lot with, for example, next week, we will have a lesson with them, the lecture, and then we talk about all the pitches together. So I'm going to bring up like a few points and talk to the group again and say, okay, without pointing a finger, of course, it's just saying some people run over time. Who you don't know, or who didn't run over time. So what could you have done better? Like what we're going to do next time? Like you're going to test it more at home with your phone, or you're going to cut, you need to know what you're going to cut out, for example. So I give them tips. So if you see you run over time, then, okay, what can you cut out? Don't talk about that stupid paragraph, which is not that much needed.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you talk about different group feedback, and they don't feel like, okay, I was like, I'm pointing the finger to. Right.
No, we never do it. I think I try from the beginning as well. Like it's this, I find always quite at the same level. Like I learn a lot from them, they learn from me. So it's quite the same level from the beginning. So it's never pointing the finger. And it's easy for me to say, but then tomorrow when I pitch for my work, then I make mistakes. So it's like it's not that everybody knows how to do it. It's difficult sometimes. It's difficult who you pitch to. Some people can be intimidating, like in the world. And I try to tell them a little as well. So when we do the pitching, it has to be on time. So for example, I cut one group off because I said like in real time, if you have a meeting with a CEO or something and you can't run over time, there's no way. And they just really stop you and you have no time to tell what you didn't tell. So you have to stay in time. So it is to learn.
They can experiment in a safe space with you, but they still have to see the reality, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And you mentioned, and I think it's a lot about building that rapport with students, and it's quite evident that you have a very good rapport with them. They can feel that you're one of them, or obviously with much more experience, but you're also on the ground. So does it help you? How do you build that rapport? And you also mentioned that you even kind of find out the various personalities, which is also very interesting. So do you make some effort of building that rapport, finding out more about them as well?
Yes, 100%, as you say. Yeah, I think it's the most important thing. Is we're all humans, we're all human beings, and it's long days. I'm teaching in the evenings usually. Sorry, excuse me. I'm teaching in the evenings usually, so it's a long day for myself. It's a long day for them as well, and it's a lot of information. And the students as well. Some of them they coming from different countries, so they're here new to London as well. So maybe without family, or they have no, you just have to make friends. So I think it's a very important thing to have it like a personal, like this relationship from the beginning, and even just to warm up in something, because as you said, everybody's different. Some people, they talk less in class. Some people from the beginning, like everybody, that's the world. Like some people talk from the beginning, are very open and talk. But it's important, I try always to keep them as a group as well. So they should learn from each other as well, because at the end, it's kind of they're the next generation and they're going to work together. Then it's their small part, but now they go into this industry in London. So they're becoming, so even in the future. So when I studied as well, and 5 years later, I started working with a colleague who I studied before. Mm-hmm. It's important even going step by step, I think, within the students, and or even for myself, then if I work in 5 years, or maybe next year, I maybe work with a student. Mm-hmm. Or last year from 2 students, I gave them like an internship, like a friend of mine, I found them like an internship to work somewhere for 3-4 months. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, and it could be my company, like it could be something, or could be even working with them. So I try from the beginning saying I'm teaching them, as you said, because I know a few more things at this stage, but then everybody has different talents, and so some students, if I would need a student to do something, like I'm not good in graphic design, so if I would need something like to make a nice pitch, then maybe a student would be better. So even in the future, so I think it's from day one having like as a group together and just evolve together and learn as much as we can from each other. Yeah,
that's very important what you mentioned about networking and building those connections, and the students don't always realize that these people around them will be their connections. But do you have some techniques to kind of, when you really see that someone is shy, someone is not so much involved, someone is not networking, or sometimes students can be grouped based on their nationality or which country they are from, and they don't really mix and mingle. So do you have some techniques to facilitate that actively?
We do. I think one is a little bit the human part. So if I see that sometimes I've even tried breaks, like it happened, and I just talk to the students like privately a little bit and just like encourage them, because just encouraging them from a personal point of view. And if they do great, and even just like encourage them because they're doing good stuff and just support them. As I said, when it's group building, which on one side it's a normal thing, it's part of it and it's nothing bad. But that's why I try, for example, we do exercises, always split groups and never let even just, I choose who's working with who, because now I know, okay, they never talk to each other. So put them together. You see as well, or even to see, okay, they talk a bit more, but maybe they're better researchers and so on. So just put them together so it makes sense for them. And once you're like over 20, 25, it's not when you're a teenager. Like I think then even people appreciate each other anyway. It's not like, I think it would be hard if they're like 15, then it's more like being more like fighting and having little problems and so, which thankfully like my students don't have. And a few are even over 30. So it's like, some things are easier than they like almost like professionals in some way. But techniques is, even like games from the beginning, like as I said, with nationalities, I'm really bad in remembering names, but I love where people are from because I'm from different country. I love to travel. So I always find it interesting more to tell people where they're from. And especially in film, it's like every country is so different. Like, for example, we do a lot with tax rebates. Like England went up to 40%, but Italy is on 30%. So every country as well as like different rebates. So even for the future work-wise, it makes sense where you're going to work, like it's cheaper to shoot in Bulgaria rather than in England, or America is more expensive than England. So if you have students from different countries, it's even, how does it work there? Or like you have Asian students and how does it work there? It's a totally different distribution market. So even like I'm trying that from students, maybe they talk a little bit less than using, if they're like from an interesting country film wise, even try to get something interesting out from them in the class. So like even the others say, I didn't know that. So it's kind of the balance, like a little bit to play out that everybody has like something to give.
Yeah, great knowledge share and best practice is very interesting, really. Let's talk a bit about the assessment, because obviously this is also something they have to do. Yes, not just in real life, but assessment, how much the assessment is aligned with what they have to do then in real life. By the way, you create your own content, or do you create your own content? Or
the assessment, you mean, or?
Assessment and course content, yes.
So I work together with, and shout out to my course leader, Rochelle. Yeah, so we kind of work together on it, like on the whole, on the project, on the program a little bit. There are like a few guidelines, of course, from university, what has to be, but then it's quite flexible. Then I can choose my own, like how to do it. And it's usually, even when I start the year, I know the first couple lessons, and then I move it around how I see what people know, what they don't know. Even this year, the course was very different than last year. So this year, for example, we focused much more on co-productions. Last year, we focused a little bit more like on budgeting and more like finance, because they knew other things. So it depends on the students, and I can quite easily adapt them from week to week what we do. When I have some guest lectures coming in as well, like have a lawyer coming in a few weeks. So he talks about the whole film finance and law. So which I think it's interesting. So just someone I know from the industry is coming in and gives real industry input. And
the assessment.
Yeah, the assessment. What was the question exactly? Sorry, I've lost it.
What kind of assessments do you have? Is it something similar to what they would?
With the real world and stuff, yeah. So the assessment we have 2 assessments per year. For example, one assessment, what we did last week or this week, was pitching. So they put like a finance plan together, an existing film, put like a finance plan together. So they can go online on IMDb Pro and stuff, just finding out, they get like probably 30% from BFI, 20% from pre-sales, public funds, co-production. And then they have to put it together. They can cheat a little bit if they don't find something, but has to make sense at the end. So they can put in it's 90% something that doesn't make sense. So that's one assessment. And I always try to make it as much, combine it with the industry, like with what they're going to use later. Like, so even when they have to pitch, you say, okay, we have to do this is part of the university, but then think as well, like as a next step tomorrow, if you're going to work, like how would you use it, or how, if this is your project now, think about 3 years ago, this, you just have the script, how would you put the money together, why would you go there? And or then we talk about it and pull out a few things and say like, oh, how, I think, yeah, so we have to follow some guidelines, university guidelines, which is important as well. I think it is important, like even do the researching, the writing essays, and so because it gives them like a structure. And even thinking back to myself when I studied my BA, it's important like just to read books and to do research, go to the library or online nowadays and just find everything. But always to combine it, the industry, what you learn in university, combine it with the real world. I think that's the most important thing, that they can use it after. And this is what I'm telling them now as well. When they pitched the other day, I said, okay, if you watch a movie tomorrow, like the same exercise we did today, do it for yourself. After you watch a movie for 5 minutes, look at the final, you see where the funding is coming from in the last 10 minutes of the film or after the film. Even when you go to the cinema, you always see like only the film people, they stay until then, because then you see like, oh, they got the funding from this small film fund in Italy or in Germany or in Austria. And it's quite interesting then. So like just start doing your own research, because it gives you small talk as well. If you go then, last month there was the London Film Festival. And if you know what are the finance companies, what are the sales companies, it's easy to have a small talk. So like start getting into it, just knowing everything that, oh, this company do horror, or they do comedy. So start using the exercise, what we did, or the assessment, but start doing it on a daily basis. Just do some small research today, because that's your knowledge then. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, this is interesting. I've never seen where the funding is coming from at the end. Now, obviously, I look at the list of people who created it, but not the fund. So that's very, very.
If you wait a little bit longer, then when it's over, when all the actors,
it's a very
last 20 seconds, you see that literally see like the city of Sheffield or something, because they put maybe 5,000 in a film or something. So it's quite interesting, yeah.
Yeah, no, I will do that. And I totally agree with you, Stefan, that employability and everything else comes from both the academic and the industry knowledge. This is what actually helps students. It's not just the industry, but I really love how you bring in the guest lecturers and also all this kind of knowledge you have from the practitioner world, and they can really practice what they would have to do in real life. How do you see it has changed compared to when you studied, or when do you see a change in this, that there's more practicality, more industry knowledge embedded into the curriculum in your field?
I think yes and no. Of course, the easiest depends. I did my bachelor like long time ago, my master a little bit later. So before, when I did my bachelor, I was like no real internet, was more libraries and stuff. So it was really much harder to reach out to people, because you couldn't find contacts. You literally couldn't meet. You didn't know. You couldn't see, for example, this example with the assessment, you couldn't find where the finance is coming from, because there's no research online you could have done. So you needed to know someone, was much more difficult. So that's easier. Now, if it changed, I think I think there's still like a gap which could be better. Like I think between university and industry the gap could be like there could be a better like working together, like for students. And
like how? What do you see as a gap?
I think it's a gap is always because students usually there's some just bureaucratic things like like a visa and something. With international students, you come and then you have to find a job, but it's hard to find a job. You have to have a certain salary. There's still like a gap there, which makes it really hard for students to come to a new country, and especially the film industry. It's big money, like budget wise, but it's not like it's not like a tech industry or something where there's a lot of money. So it's not easy that people just hire people, or if you're like a graphic designer or like a developer, like you just find a job and you get hired somewhere. It's kind of, if you work in development or something, it's a skill you slowly, it's about connections. You make a film, which is a project, and there's a new project and you don't have a job. So it's hard to find a job when you get out of university. And we do internships, which is an important thing. University of Westminster, they help students how to find an internship. And I think that's the most important thing anyway. First, because you learn in 2 weeks of an internship, you learn as much as in a full year of a course, because you just talk to people, you see how it actually works. And then if you're good, you meet people, you talk to people, you network, and then you can get a job out of it. So what I would say to students, and that was what I did myself as well, is while you study, some students, that's another thing, but I try to tell them, like, you have to find a job while you're studying, not after you study. And first you have more time, you're like positive, you don't have to stress, because after when you finish, you have to stress, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. and you're sitting around and you have nothing to do. So finding a job while you're studying, and even going on a film set, like there's so many short films. London is a big city, like so many films. You can work on a run as a runner on a film set or something. Even I got a job. I worked on a friend's film once for a couple of days, and then I met someone else, and I got a job in a production company for 2 years, where I worked for 2 years in development, just out of helping a friend out on a film set. And just doing stuff like this, just be in the industry. And I think that's where university could be maybe. I think it's always hard, because on the other side, it's an industry, like you are on your own as little bit as well, like if you're old enough, we as teachers we can help them and say, okay, go out and do it, but then it's them, they have to do it. They have to, which as well, not everybody will get a job. It's like, but if you push, then you will get one. And then, if you put in the energy, then you will get it. But try to, or even I talk to university, to my course leader and everything, I try let's try to give them as much experience as possible. Or let's send them to film festivals. Let's send them to talks, or let's go to some premieres where you meet the writers, the directors or something, go some Q&A. Try to, and I think that's university needs to, but then it depends on the teachers, depends on the people,
Absolutely. No. And I think that you do a lot to help them with that. I mean, with all these kind of practitioners, I can see that with your course, they can get very close to the industry actually and get a lot.
We try to.
You're right. They also have to do it then. It's not like spoon feeding. So the last question is about, you also mentored students and as part of the University of Westminster mentoring program, I believe in group mentoring as well. So what do you see in terms of soft skills? What do you see as the struggles, questions of students? Because that was not specifically filmmaking, right? It was all the soft skills and the struggles and questions. So what do you see as their biggest struggles where you could help, or the things that always came up?
I think the biggest struggle is, of course, to find a job. That's always the first thing. That's the main thing. Why you go to university, or when you grow up, you need to, or you want to get a job. I think it's always the industry, how to get it, and a lot is, I think, to understand what you can do. I think it's otherwise one is the job, and the other big question is, what can I do? What do I like? And I think that's the whole system. Sometimes it's a little bit like we study something, but we don't know. Even now with film producing, like my course, it's film finance. They all become producers. But a lot of them over the year, they change, because they think it's something, and then, it's something else. And you never know exactly that's why I say internship is so important, even the tutoring with someone from the industry, because I can tell them, well, if sometimes you can just tell them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, what I'm doing. I can literally tell you, okay, today I have to do this for 7 hours, or I talk to this, or this takes usually 10 people say no, and then one may says maybe. If you send a script in film now, it takes 2 months and someone comes back. In the meantime, you have to do something else. So I think it's a little bit just in the tutoring, it's depending on the age always, of course, how old the students are, which stage they are, or how much what they already know what they want to do. But it's a lot of questions. The important thing is just explaining them actually what is the daily job, and if they like it. Even just guiding them, okay, do we like that as well? As I said, always people think finance is boring, for example. I find finance sometimes is more interesting than something else, because it's much more straightforward. If you like that, it's a little bit about numbers as well, but it's about creative as well. You have to put things together, and it's a little bit more straightforward than the creative part, because people think if you work in a creative thing, it's always just writing something, but it's a lot of waiting around, a lot of compromise and stuff. So it's as well just a daily job, how it works. And for me, of course, I talk more about film, saying okay, if I shoot a film, then I get a casting director. Then how does that work? So I can explain, if you work with a casting director, with actors, that's how it goes. It takes a few days to do this. Then you do you meet with actors, you do that. Then you have a few rounds of script development. So you explain a little bit how it works, and I think that's what they're most interested as well. And then you can guide them a little bit, say maybe it makes sense to do an internship there, or maybe it makes sense to get some practical, maybe go on a film set for 2 months, and then you see if you like that. Because some people like to be on a film set and talk to people. A lot of people, different characters, they don't like to talk to people. Then they probably shouldn't work on a film set. They should probably work in development. Then it's more like a creative part with less stress. And other people like getting up early and being around the people and 50 and hands-on and helping and building up and doing stuff. So I think it's just explaining them honestly, just how it is exactly. Because of course, and sometimes in university, at schools, they just tell you, this is, you create a film, you produce a film. But they leave away the smaller parts, which is then which is the daily hustle.
Daily job, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, your students are very lucky, Stefan, to learn.
Thank you.
And we were very lucky today. Thank you so much for being here and sharing everything, all your experience in academia and also outside of it. And I think it's so important to show students the practitioner world, that something that you do. So thank you so much, Stefan. Thank you for being here. Thank you everybody for your attention. And that was this episode of The Academic Room.